More than 4 decades have passed since my brother John and 3 other lads from Liverpool played here at the legendary Cavern Club, a smoke-filled, sweltering teenage refuge of raw music known as the Merseybeat sound. Here, below Mathew Street, at the heart of the city, the Beatles gelled as a band. John, Paul, George and Ringo would become household names. Though I was younger than my brother, I have vivid memories of that sound and of their desire to make it to the toppermost of the poppermost, as John would say. And the Beatles took the world by storm.
Come together right now over me.
Though they no longer exist as the Fab Four, their musical revolution lives on for generations of fans and has spawned thousands of tribute bands worldwide. This is a tribute to that legacy. Since the untimely death of my brother, the city of Liverpool and the music of the Beatles have witnessed a renaissance as new generations of fans discover and original fans rediscover the sounds of the most influential musical group of the 20th century.
Vividly remember going into my paternal grandparents' home when I was 6 years of age. And your grandparents never ever shout, they're always the nice ones because you don't have to put up with you all the time. And on this occasion, my grandmother went ballistic, and she was screaming and shouting at my Auntie Joyce, and found out that she'd been sending in forged notes from the parents saying she was sick. And in actual fact, what she was doing every morning was going to school in a school uniform, getting changed, and going straight to Mathew Street and watching the Beatles in the lunchtime sessions.
The idea to reenact a sort of lunchtime show at the Cavern certainly came from after we'd been over there a couple of times. You really got a sense once you were in there of how humble their beginnings were. It's 3 stories down from street level. The temperature would get so hot in there from so many people being in there that their amplifiers were literally shut off because the room was so moist. They'd have to do acoustic songs while someone was drying out their amplifier with a hairdryer.
Close your eyes.
Loud and it's sweaty and hot and it's just perfect, just like the Beatles, and I love it.
As their legacy continues and the legend grows, Liverpool has come to be known as the Mecca of all things Beatles. Once a year, more than 300,000 fans and over 70 Beatle tribute bands from every corner of the world make their pilgrimage to Mathew Street. The Mathew Street Festival and the International Beatle Week it's part of have become Europe's largest outdoor event with no sign of losing momentum.
Beatle Week, of course, is a festival that goes on in Liverpool for a whole week.
Played to about, I don't know, 10,000 people yesterday on the stage.
It is shoulder to shoulder from one side of the street to the other. There's over 400,000 more people in town for that celebration from every corner of the planet.
I jumped up on stage with a band from Ireland that I think are brilliant, the Beatles for Sale group. There's no competition, there's no BS, it's just, hey, how are you? You were great, you were great.
Beatle Week is just another forum for that interest for many people because the tribute bands come here, you know, every single year.
But there's some, to be honest, that can play better than the Beatles. But of course, they cannot be as good as the Beatles because they're a tribute band.
We've all been playing our instruments for many more years than the Beatles were playing their instruments in '62 and '63. How do we not play too good? How do we leave some of that rawness in there? Because if you play the Roll Over Beethoven like Eddie Van Halen, it just doesn't sound right. So you have to play it with that kind of feel of like, is he going to make it through this?
And even the Beatles started off playing other people's songs. You know, they all started playing covers.
And they're making it still alive, and the youngsters can hear what the Beatles were like.
It's such good buzz.
You know, you see kids walking around the streets here, you see walking around the bars in Liverpool and that, people sing along, all ages.
My son, he absolutely loves this era. He's grown up on it.
It turns me on.
Some bands are good, some bands are not good, but without these bands, something will be missing here.
Because the world is round.
And the key word is tribute. It's not copy. You know, you're not copying, exactly. Yeah, just paying respect to them.
The only one thing I can think is a problem with being a tribute band as opposed to another band is the stigma that people sometimes put on a tribute band.
The repetition of the...
Yeah, saying you're just a tribute band, you're just copying somebody else's music.
And that's always been our biggest challenge, to get people to jump over the Elvis impersonator hump. You know, that's the stigma of like, oh, you're an impersonator, Elvis show.
That's, you know, what the best bands are able to pull off. At a certain point, they become invisible. They don't really become the Beatles. They just meld with the songs and get out of the way of the songs and let everybody celebrate what they love about the Beatles.
We're basically saying, you're going to think you're seeing the Beatles, so we better have it right on if we're going to do that.
Imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. The lengths some tribute bands go to ranges from simple vocal harmonies to what are affectionately called boots and suits.
Put on the wigs and all the stuff for theatrical, you actually step into it.
Yeah,
then the transition of being Gavin Pring to George Harrison, as George says, you put on the suit, you put on a persona, it's easier to kind of slip into that role.
Regardless of nationality, they attempt to look and sound as close to the originals as possible. The result is a creative composite of musical expression.
Get the right strings, get the right guitars. You gotta talk like them, you gotta walk like them, you gotta move like them.
Now we're going to be twice entertained by them. Once right now in the second half of our shoe. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is the moment you're all been waiting for. Really big hand for John, Paul, George, Ringo, and the Beatles.
We've done everything we can to make it as authentic as possible with original instruments and costuming and all those different things.
People kind of like, of my generation, they kind of like didn't like the Beatles for a little while because it was such a high standard to reach. We remind them of someone that they can't see anymore. Especially for the Georges and the Johns in the band.
So Rollo, being the smart businessman as he was, went up to Artie and asked him if he'd want to be in a Beatles tribute band, and Artie said, well, you know, getting dressed up and doing the accents.
I said, well, let me think about it. No.
And so, but later we got together and tried to create the ultimate tribute.
You're always playing catcher because none of us will ever be them or even close, and all you can do is keep trying to push the card a little bit further, you know, and try to do a little bit of different makeup one night. Hey guys, what do you think about that? How's the hair this way or whatever? It'll never be perfect.
We shall scramble.
All that gear was rented. So before the show, we're spending time taking off somebody's strings and putting on the ones we use. So you try to get it as consistent as possible.
There's one right there, look down front.
So I used to do 9-to-5 jobs. I used to work at Customs and Excise, so I was a taxman. Hey, look at that. I was a taxman, 9 to 5, and I did other jobs, and I never found a job that I actually liked, and I realised quite early on that if you're in a band and you do a good job, people cheer, and you get instant gratification for something. You know, like if I did a deal or I sold some clothes or whatever, no one went, yeah!
The challenge with the Fab Four is to make them sound authentic.
It's always easier to play there, and when you were teaching me at the beginning, you were all...
And we've been really dialing up the exact sounds with the exact guitars. We're seeing the difference with the audiences.
When we got into the Sgt. Pepper suits, people really liked that. So we started to realize, hey, people like to see a visual thing. And then we got the call to go to Las Vegas, and I think that's where it really turned from a band to a show.
Boom, the adrenaline kicks in, and there we go.
They split up with a girl, or they met their wife to something, or, you know, one of the songs of the Beatles will have documented a period in their life, and it comes back in a second. And whatever it is about what we do, whatever it is, that it's their experience that they see, and they can't help it. They can't, and they will, you know, do anything to grab it, even if it's for a second. If it's for a second of that feeling of hope or whatever when they were younger, they'll do it, and that's what we do.
Ladies and gents, please, one more time, we hands again for a Fab Four. And Mr. Ed Sullivan. Thank you very much to Neil and everyone here at the Royal Club. Till next time, Liverpool, God bless. Thank you very much.
A tribute band with this kind of dedication and attention to detail is a pleasure to witness.
Wait, Mr. Postman. Mr. Postman, look and see. Oh, yeah, have that for me.
He was on me for a couple of years and said, you want to join, you want to join? No. 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 You want to join, you want to join? No. No. And then I said yes.
I think we take them on a time trip to get to know the 60s.
Each one believing that love never dies, watching her eyes and hoping I'm always there.
Sometimes you wonder as you see the crowd, oh my God, we're playing on a place where most of the people are 19, 20, 21 years old. And then you play, for example, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and you realize this is Nirvana. We have something that we in Sweden call kommunala musikskola. Well, it's true.
And it's funny.
And it's fun, I know.
Not look alike, but sound alike, the Beatles. And we're going to do a thing with a string quartet.
Yes.
It's great to be part of this show, to dance around, not just sit there and play.
Look at him working, donning his socks in the night when there's nobody there. One
There was one Beatles band that was a tribute band that called themselves the Beatles.
Yeah. That's the same spelling.
I mean, to sit down and say, okay, what should our name be? We're a tribute band with the Beatles. The Beatles.
All the lonely people, where do they all come from? Good day, sunshine. Good day, sunshine. Got to get you into my life. I never give you my pillow.
1-2 gigs maybe during all these years. Maybe you think, why didn't we stop or quit? But then you get back again, so it's just about uphill.
But it's the same thing as playing Mozart today. Like, it's great music. You have to continue playing it live.
Nobody says to Karajan, why do you just copy other people's music? Why does London Symphony Orchestra, why do you only play other people's music? Because that's what they do, right? This interpretation.
Why shouldn't people go out and recreate Beatle music, you know, live on stage? Why is that stranger than going to hear a chamber group do the Bach Brandenburg concertos?
You listen to the likes of Handel and Beethoven and Bach. Well, the Beatles have become the first popular music band and individuals to achieve that same level.
All the lonely people, where do they all belong?
Playing in a tribute band can cross many barriers, and the original boy band has its share of female interpreters and their followers too.
I've seen a lot of girls really made up to like see us play.
There are scousers, so they go the Beatles attitude, the Beatles accent.
As soon as we start playing, we're different because we're girls. We don't sound the same as the Beatles, so that's a twist in itself. Because we like to add our own arrangements as well, it's more creative. It shows that we are good musicians. At first, people were sort of a little shocked that there was girl groups around doing this type of thing. But once they sort of hear us and they get to meet us and things, we've sort of got up a little bit of a following now. We've got a gig in France out of it as well.
Have we?
Didn't you know?
Women in the audience, and we'll come up after and they'll be like, oh my God, I'm so glad you girls are doing it. You're doing it for the girls, you know what I mean? Like, they're really proud of us.
Everybody's got something to it, except for me and my monkey.
A lot of people, I mean, especially in this country, feel repressed to play an instrument in school. There's a lot of bullying that goes on.
Someone said that, didn't they? So what's the point? Girls can't play.
Yeah, it was actually the Beatles' first manager, Alan Williams. He was like, he walked in, saw us on stage, went, girls can't play anyway, and walked out.
It's good proving people wrong and things because people do have preset ideas that girls aren't going to be very good, and we love to prove them wrong.
We need to get that message across that girls can play too.
You try to look exactly like George, you have to be so damn good at it because otherwise it's just creepy.
George was called the quiet one in the early days, perhaps because he was younger than the others and lived somewhat in their shadow. But all that ended when he picked up his guitar.
I saw an advert in the paper and it said, do you look like a Beatle? And in inverted commas it said, or do people say you do? And as a kid, I'd been told I looked like George Harrison.
Instead of, doing a regular type of a solo, he did a...
And he's just, 19 years old and smiling, playing this out. And just something about the look of this guitar.
it's got a nice country sound, so you have to, you know, be switching your tones throughout the song. It's only 2 minutes, but you'll probably change your tone about 5 times.
You know, it's why the Stray Cats play them, it's why other groups play them. It all goes back to George and the Beatles. That's so imperative to the sound. You gotta have it.
So I picked it up and I played a few George parts, and I thought, wow, this sounds just like George done. The difference then becomes me.
So then we've got the Rig 12-string. Now, I remember seeing this for the first time when I saw the movie Hard Day's Night.
You know, when George got this thing, man, he just played it forever. Probably like 2.5 albums. He just loved the feeling and tone of it so much. It's just so great. So funky and Beatle-y. You have a spirit. You want to look the part and feel the part, and we want the audience to believe it. As soon as you walk in, you're like, yeah, you know, you just want to jump up and rock.
We're teaching the next generation the timelessness of this music.
Look at that crowd, mate. This is why we do Beatle music. It's an adrenaline rush, man. It's like that first time you wanted to kiss that girl you really, 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 really love. That's why we're here. Liverpool, it's Mecca. This band, I mean, we go really over the top to try to capture the 60s sound. If it's not a real amplifier, if it's not a real Gretsch or a Rick, and I mean, we get a little anal, and we will sit there until we have it as close as we can get it.
It's about keeping the integrity of the band at a high level.
American English, we've had to put their show back about an hour. George Harrison of American English is actually in Paris at the moment.
George is on his way from the airport.
Left in Greenland. Well, I know it's not funny. It can only happen to us.
When what happened the other night happens, you don't even know if you're gonna play. So now you start reversing that. You're like, okay, well, the show's not gonna happen, right? It's a meltdown. It's over. You start unwinding. Boom, he shows up. Now you're on stage, and you're completely unglued.
You just gotta rock.
Yeah, and that's when you rely on that. Yeah.
You give it up 110%.
Please welcome them live at the Adelphi Beatle Week 2008, American English! 8 days a week. We are just a lucky guy. Love to hear you say that love is love. Though we may be blind, love is here to stay and not to know.
This thing's become a movement, and what I mean by movement is it's bringing people together that may have never got together. We've played a lot of different places in the world, and I've talked to people who said they couldn't get their children to go anywhere with them at all. But they said, we're gonna go see the Beatles in Puerto Rico or in Tokyo. People came up to the table afterwards, fathers crying with their daughters, actually seeing some guy crying that his daughter came out with him and says, thank you, because now she loves the Beatles and I have somewhere to go with my daughter. And I thought, this This is bigger than even getting the drums tuned and the guitars tuned and the tie is at crooked. This is bigger. We've touched way too many people in a way more positive way. We brought them together. The Beatles spirit in the music, that's what did it, you know.
Come together.
Look at the power of this.
He was always up for a laugh.
Singing, yelling, dancing about, all of that, you know.
One of the bits that we use in the show is, I'll say, we're actually recording tonight's performance as well, you know, so you all might be on a record, and they all cheer, and I said, probably not, but you can't really say, you know, you don't know, do you?
John is remembered in many ways: cheeky, sarcastic, angry, and soft-hearted. I saw him as a loving big brother who shared the pain of the loss of our mother. I looked up to him for his strength to succeed, to overcome, and his painful search for peace, within himself and for the world.
This is the bedroom that John slept in, little bay at the front. On the wall he had Juliet Greco and Bridget Bardot. He didn't know whether he wanted a blonde or a dark-haired lady then. And on the ceiling, he had all origami-type things of skeletons to frighten Mimi, which we thought was really funny. The porch underneath is where they practiced. John and Paul could just about get in. And they'd have 5 minutes here and there if Mimi could put up with the noise. And you notice to the right of the porch and the bedroom, in the middle on the wall, there's a blue plaque, and that is an English heritage plaque. There was a ceremony, and my cousin Stan and I actually came down and put that plaque up.
So you can imagine, like, on a Wednesday night, nothing going on, no gigs, not famous guys, hanging out here. Or imagine out here on a nighttime, checking out stars, and maybe at some point having self-doubt. Maybe wondered what would happen to him, wondered how long he'd live, wondered how far he'd go. All the basic things that every single human being on the whole planet wonders about, you know. And look at all the people that care. It's wild. Best wishes, John. Peace and love.
To me, Lennon was, you know, he was the bitter and the sweet, and the bitter being just there seemed like something in him that is full of angst and full of his anger and just the need to scream.
I was there when John met Paul.
You were there?
I was there. I was 15 at the time. I was standing with them.
Nice.
I saw this meeting take place.
How did it go down? Tell us.
I'll tell you inside.
Let's do it.
John and the quarrymen were sitting on these steps waiting to go in, waiting to play on the stage in the evening.
The actual spot where Paul first saw John was not really at St. Peter's Hall, but at a field on the other side of the church where the quarrymen performed.
This is the very place that the quarrymen very first played at the famous Woolton Garden Fete. The lorries that John and the others came up from the village in came to the right of the church, up a gravel path, came round the corner and parked all the way up, and the last one would have been just here on the field. John was wearing a shirt that my mother had bought at Garston Market, a check shirt that he really loved. So Paul McCartney actually met and saw John for the first time when John was on the makeshift platform here, singing his heart out. Now, they'd already done Over the Road in the afternoon with the families, and we were all there. And my mother had taken Jackie and I home because this was the evening do, and it was too late for us. And this is where Ivan brought Paul, and they met more socially for the first time. John recognised then, as the quote at the bottom of the plaque says, that the day that they met was the day that it all started, the beginning of the Beatles, as we know them.
Let's rock!
What's great about Instant Karma is it spans the whole career of John Lennon. The John Lennon quarryman doing Bebop-a-lua and slipping and sliding and Elvis songs.
There's no fun in what I do when she's not there. I move away wrong, I'm waiting for you.
I crafted it all when I was in my teens. You know, that's when I did the serious talking and would listen to the record and try to get every little lisp right, John takes a breath.
I love you so. I'm the one who wants you.
I work at American Airlines and I load airplanes. I've been doing it for 20 years. Most of the guys at the airport are really great and supportive. And when musicians travel and we see a guitar coming through now bags we kind of scoop over to each other. If we see a guitar, we just gently,
take care of it.
Golf clubs we throw around.
Interpretation of the music of the Beatles takes on many forms.
Ladies and gents, please give them a big Adelphi welcome. The Cavern's resident Beatle band, the Mathew Beatles!
If I had some more time to spend, then
Me and Brian, we went to school together and we were in a band together, writing original stuff and playing a few covers and things like that. And then as years went by, we kind of didn't get signed, you know. There's a lot of Beatles tribute bands that'll tell you the same story. We're playing covers in pubs to make a bit of money for studio time and that kind of thing.
it makes me wanna cry.
And when it got to the Beatles part of our set, we found we were enjoying that more because Beatles are our favourite band, you know, so that made a lot of sense. So we just kind of formalised it as a Beatles tribute band. And when we got to about the age of 27, we decided we've got to go for this now, this Beatle thing, you know.
This next song's called Anytime At All. Anytime At All.
I mean, you're never going to release an album, you know what I mean? So the biggest you can get is to play the bigger theatres and the bigger festivals. When I was a teenager, I kind of thought Beatles tribute bands were a bit naff, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? I just thought it kind of was a bit cheeky and wrong because I was right into the Beatles, you know. And I just thought, this isn't right. No, I'm in a Beatles tribute band. But I get it now because the point is the Beatles are never going to do it again. You know, it's impossible. And if the Philharmonic Orchestra can play Beethoven, then we can play Beatles because that's what we are. We're the modern version of a Philharmonic Orchestra, if you like. We bring that music to life. When we're sort of 45, 50, then we might still want to play Beatle music. In fact, we definitely will still want to play Beatle music, but we'll do it with a bit of class. When you're learning a song, you just listen to Paul's bits, and if Paul's voice comes on, you think, oh, I've got to get that.
As soon as they met, John and Paul discovered that they enjoyed being on stage and that they both wrote songs. Early on, they found inspiration in each other for continual suggestions and improvement. Their body of work speaks for itself. Paul's strong and versatile voice is legendary, and the screaming legions of fans agreed.
Paul came in, you guys got to speak to Paul and say, what do you think of Beatle bands? See whether he'd go, yeah, you know, it's kind of cool, you know, sort of thing. Or whether he'd go,
I think Paul and Ringo were the most fluid movers in the band. And when you watch them and you notice, especially if John and Paul are at the mic, Paul bounces up on the beat, and so does Ringo. And John bounces down. So when they're at the mic, they're going like this.
He might not like all the look-alike bands and all that stuff, but I think he's very, very proud of what he created. I kind of do feel my eyebrows going up sometimes when I'm playing Paul. I do. I've got the wig on and I'm there and I've got the huff and the bass. Hey, you know, like that.
Our homework is watching Beatle videos and listening to Beatle music, and even at our sound checks, we're always working out different little details.
The English bands, they kind of have a laissez-faire sort of approach. They sort of go, yeah, I can sound and I can kind of resemble the guy, so there you go, that's enough. And the Americans would go that extra mile, as you were saying, they'd go left-handed. They would start going, okay, what we're going to do now is, you know, and they'd try all the accents and everything.
If you're going to play bass in a Beatles band, you got to play left-handed. I'm a right-handed guitar player all my life. Flipped it over to play left-handed bass. In the orchestra shows, I had to memorize where my hands go.
The symmetry is just perfect. I mean, you can play it upside down this way. It doesn't change, like one of those guitars that everybody just wants to touch.
It's the kind of a one-trick pony, the Hofner, right? It doesn't have any sustain. It goes boom, 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 boom. That's all it does.
You had to play eighths.
I can keep the half net. I do have a Rickenbacker as well, which McCartney had, but I keep the half net. I just turn the treble up for the later stuff. You know, when he get his Rickenbacker sound and put the bass up for the early stuff and get that deep, plonky sound, yeah.
It took about 6 months every day, playing a little bit every day, one song at a time, until I was able to do a first early set, all the early Beatles stuff. Boom, 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 that's all it was. You start doing that and you'll quickly evolve to the next stuff.
There are places I remember all my life, though some have changed, some forever, not for better.
You've listened to that music for all that length of time, and then you come here, and then you see all of these places.
You know, Penny Lane, you're standing behind the shelter in the middle of the roundabout.
Behind the shelter in the middle of the roundabout.
Just the connection with Liverpool and the fact I was from there just really made it really special.
Even now, even today, when you think about it, it's still special. It's still, you get that little butterfly in your stomach.
You can imagine them on the bus going past Penny Lane and on the 82, and you know, and we do it.
Penny Lane, there is a barber showing photographs. Every head is on the pleasure to know.
And you're like, it's just a building, you know. It's to everybody here, it's no big deal, but to maybe that's why we appreciate it so much coming from America or coming from a different country. You're just like, this is it.
You look in shock, you know, at some people's reaction to standing outside the gates at Strawberry Fields, for example. It's just a set of gates, but it exudes John Lennon. It's John Lennon. It's everything about John Lennon.
He's a real nowhere man, sitting in his nowhere land, making all his nowhere plans for nobody. Down, down, making all his nowhere plans for nobody.
If music is the universal language, then the songs of the Beatles are its Rosetta Stone. Their songs are an international language that cross all borders and override cultural differences. If only the world would stop and listen more often.
Liverpool, welcome all the way from Tokyo, Japan, the Aspreys! Well, come on, pretty baby, what you walking me? Come on, pretty baby, what you talking me?
Some of the best ones we've had, and people laugh when you say it, are from Japan. And you get a phone call from someone saying, we've got this Beatle band from Japan, and the Paul looks exactly like Paul, and the John looks exactly like John. And it's, yeah, come on, they're from Japan, they can't look exactly like them. Send through a photo, and it's just amazing.
I can't imagine like a group of my friends and I forming a Bulgarian rock band in which we sing in Bulgarian, have no clue what we're saying. It strikes me as impossible.
Yes, I'm gonna make it a do. Show you what your loving man can do. I don't know. I cry and say, wait a minute. A meeting.
The name The Aspreys is from the film Help.
They have the hippest name. I mean, you know, there's always that thing of how are you going to name yourself?
Ringo in the film Help went to the shop to his ring off.
The Aspreys, now that's a reference that, you know, you have to chase down.
This is Asprey. It's a famous jewelry store. I mean, it's like the great jewelry store in London. But you'll notice in Help, when they go to try to get Ringo's ring off, they go here to get help. So you'll see them walking down this street and into Asprey's.
Japanese Beatles tribute band so accurate, like Seiko or Citizen Watch.
Western tribute band is not so accurate, but they try to express how the Beatles sound has a kind of groove.
僕はねドラムなんだけどもう首が痛いんでね首振りすぎて会社で。
Ringo is the reason. I started to learn how to play drums the night after I saw him on Ed Sullivan.
Before they had Ringo and Pete was playing the drums, Ringo was actually more of a star. He was in Roy Storm and the Hurricanes, and they were they had the matching suits. They were like very popular in Liverpool.
Ringo was the oldest and most seasoned musician in the early days. Paul's brother Mike introduced him to the other three, who knew him as the drummer for Roy Storm and the Hurricanes. His professional experience and drumming style was a perfect complement to the group. The Beatles were now complete, and a destiny of rhythm was set.
We have a Ringo impersonator called Max Frudd, and he is incredibly like Ringo, actually. We were outside Ringo's house in Admiral Grove, and Margaret, who lives in Ringo's house, and she's lived there for many, many years now, she's a big Beatle fan, and she loves people who come to the door.
But I was going to give you a ring to say I'm here, but I can't stop, love, so...
You're not Ringo anyway.
I know.
To me, he's one of the most creative drummers
Definitely.
And the most musical drummers that there are, you know.
Thank you.
Well,
Say hello to Ringo, folks. See many different Ringos over the weekend. That's Brian Ringo.
Ringo is left-handed. I'm left-handed. When he goes to play a fill, he starts with the opposite hand that a right-handed drummer would, playing on a right-handed drum kit. Some of the fills he does in Day Tripper, he goes from the floor tom to the rack tom, he does it backwards.
Whenever Ringo would come down and just come into the club to see the Beatles, John would stop the show. John would just stop and he'd go, "Do you know what time it is? It's Ringo Star time." And they'd do this da-da-da-da-da-da-da, this little stupid fanfare. Ringo would come up, do this little dance on stage like this, and then he'd jump back and play a couple of songs. And that was his, big sit-in kind of thing.
you know, he plays the hi-hat from side to side. Yeah. And what I found is that when I started doing that, my head kind of started going like this a bit, you know?
And then your legs.
Yeah.
And then all your body's...
Yeah. I want to be your lover, baby. I want to be your man. I want to be your lover, baby. I want to be your man.
I'll play the part and I won't need rehearsing. That's all I gotta do is act naturally. For you, yeah.
When a love for music turns from a hobby to a lifelong career, how do you stay motivated and keep the flame of musical passion burning night after night?
The idea behind 1964, the tribute, is to show people what it was like to see a Beatles concert.
It's been a hard day's night, and I've been working like a dog.
This is our 25th year touring together. This year is our 25th year, isn't it? 25 bloody years.
We started the show in 1984 in Ohio, thinking it would be a hobby and we'd just play the bars in Ohio on the weekends, and then maybe a couple of years it'd be finished.
Anybody have the same haircut for 25 years? And these shoes, what were we thinking? This whole second part of the show, basically up here going, ow, 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 ow.
I think while you're getting ready, while you're getting dressed, I tend to start thinking about things that to me are very John. Facial expressions. You just overlay his face onto your face, and this is what he would have been seeing here tonight. We made sure it's the same kind of drum heads, the same kind of drum sticks, the same kind of cymbals, the same kind of amplifiers and speakers, the same kind of guitars, the same kind of strings, straps, anything that isn't going to just suddenly be like, the water cooler in an 18th century movie, that just really stands out.
We're doing 140 shows a year, all over the planet, playing the best music you can play.
I Feel Fine is another really John lick. funny thing is, especially about that particular song, the B-side of that was exactly the same. It was...
Even if you're, you know, economic differences, gender differences, geographic differences, cultural differences, something is common about the Beatles to all these people.
We stay in the early costumes, and we do that every night. It's the touring Beatles, 64, 5, 6, how they looked when they were out. And it's like we, over the 26 years, we probably played 12 or 15 shows where we played with an entire orchestra and did the later stuff. We don't do that every night.
One of the things that I did was I made my own guitars. And for instance, here's a good example of the guitar that John used throughout most of his career. It's a slightly shorter scale, and the neck is thin. I made the fretboard slightly wider, just slightly, not enough that you look at it and go, oh my gosh, but just so it's just slightly easier to play, and the neck just a little fatter so that it would cut my hand better the way I like it. Other than that, it was the same.
After 24 years, you could have never told me that we'd be doing Carnegie Hall and, you know, Red Rocks and these major festivals and going all over the world, and yet it doesn't show any signs of slowing up at all.
I love the fact that when the lights go up and you can see the faces, we take all those people away from the world and their problems for 2 hours, and they're smiling and singing and having a great time together, and it's like that's a privilege.
Are they unreal? They're going to be back. They're going to play more for us in just a couple of minutes.
They look the part, they sound the part. Fantastic.
One more time.
Imagine a world without the music of the Beatles. They brought so much joy to so many, and their message of love and peace came at a time when the world needed it most, and still does.
The Beatles are a huge part of British heritage. You know, every time a Beatles record or a solo record by any of the members of the Beatles is played on radio or it's shown on TV, it's Liverpool knocking on the ears of the world.
John, Paul, George, and Ringo. 4 brothers joined in music. 4 sons of Liverpool who shook the world. Their legacy and spirit lives on in the fans who love them and the bands that honour them in tribute.
Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday and today, our theaters have been jammed with newspapermen and hundreds of photographers from all across this country. These veterans agree with me that the city has never witnessed such excitement that has been stirred by these youngsters from Liverpool who call themselves the Beatles. Now we're going to be twice entertained by them, once right down the second half of our shoe. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is the moment you all been waiting for. Really big hand for John, Paul, George, and Ringo, and to the Beatles. Really big.
And that's kind of what I do.